Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Wow, exciting, exciting. So, I want to give you thanks for being here on screen with me today, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. Please share the link. You've asked for this, and so I want to make sure that everyone benefit. But this is great. Please go ahead and share where you are joining from, and here we go. Thank you for joining, Benita. Um, yep, we have that. Thank you so much for joining from Facebook. And we have a few other folks. I know it's after work and it's been a long day. It's been a long day. So I'm sure it's been a long day for you as well. So please do go ahead, share the link, and jump on in, and we can go. I don't want to be on here too long today. I want to make this worth your time. You've been asking a lot of questions and just want to be sure that I'm able to answer them. So without further ado, it says Chantel Jackson. Okay. I stand corrected there. Thank you so much for joining, Chantel. Thank you for joining as well, Willie May. I appreciate your being on. And please do share the link with others. So let me show over. If you're still not able to hear me again, show no sound. It seemed to be mostly on Facebook, but folks are hearing on YouTube at Queen Quanta. We're going to work through this. I may have to reschedule this again to go over if it becomes more problematic. I'm not sure if it's something with the connection versus this new platform. So I'll just jump straight into the information instead of doing the tube. Okay, now I'm getting confirmation those on YouTube can. So we'll skip the we will go ahead and skip the information we were doing here because I wanted to wrap this up within 30, no more than 40 minutes. So here we go. Then on the YouTube, on the Facebook channel, we're going to go through the basics. So in order to be able to communicate with your physician, sometimes it's just the basics that needs to be known. And I don't want to start answering questions without first recognizing what are some of the basic things that you need to be aware of. So the question that came to me was, when I go to see my doctor, I wait for 20 minutes. I see the nurse for 10 minutes, and then the doctor comes in the room and I see him for all of 5 minutes. And sometimes I see a doctor, sometimes I don't. And I don't know who's who or who's the right person to speak to or when is the right person that I can, um, excuse me. Folks are putting in the chat here. I'm not sure for the YouTube channel. Thank you for sharing that, Patrice. For those who are on the YouTube, it's at Queen Quanta. All right. So I wanted to get into talking on how you can just do the basic, how to get back to the basics. We go to the doctor, we don't know who we're seeing, when we're seeing them, who we're supposed to talk to. So let's begin from the very basics, right? So I'll go back here. Who's who in your primary care? There are different folks that are being seen, and the thing I'm getting from you mostly is you're not certain if you're actually seeing a doctor or what's the difference between an MD versus a DO versus MP versus a PA, and does it really make a difference in your care? And so the main point of contact is usually your primary care. And you're asking what's the difference between a PCP versus a PCM? And if they are the gatekeeper, these are just some basic stuff that you should know before we can talk about cancer or anything else that there may be. So here's some of the things I wanted to go through with you. So let's talk about who's who on your team. So they're different medical professionals. And I know for some, it's like, well, I may or some may know this and some do not. So, who are the professionals that you're seeing when you go in for a checkup or whatever it may be? They're the actual medical doctors or the doctor of osteopathy. And these are the physicians who have been through the training of, well, very lengthy training. They've had 4 years, and this is now after college, 4 years of medical school, and then 4 years of residency, and then anywhere from an additional 3 to 6 years for optional fellowship or to specialize. So when you're talking about your primary care physician or just physician in general, they're training anywhere from 10 to 16 years of training. Then there are what we call the advanced providers, the advanced practice providers, who are your nurse practitioners and your physician assistants. Now, your nurse practitioners are RNs who have gone beyond their college degree to get a master's in what they have. So they also can do prevention and patient education, and they can diagnose and treat a wide variety of health condition. And also depend on the state or the country you're in, because then you can go in and see a nurse practitioner and they're able to take care of you, be it just a cold or diabetes or high blood pressure. Your primary, the advanced practice providers, they can take care of you in that setting. The big difference between a nurse practitioner and a physician assistant is that the physician assistants are also highly trained. However, the physician assistants are the ones who have to work directly under a physician. So they are exactly that. They're a physician assistant. So they will be able to assist you, see you, diagnose, and supervise everything else, but they have to report to a doctor. So it's important for you to know who it is that you're seeing and what's the difference in their training and what they can do for you. Sometimes it's necessary to go beyond your nurse practitioner and beyond your physician assistant. So you just need to know who it is that you are seeing. So, how do you maximize your primary care visit, right? You need to understand the role that your primary care have. They are like the gatekeeper for you. There is no way that, well, now the way that insurance are set up, in order for you to have any additional care, you have to go through your primary care provider. Again, it could be a physician, nurse practitioner, or a physician assistant. So, how do you maximize the time that you have with your doctor? And even though I'm talking about PCP right now, this can go with any actually doctor visit. So it's important for you to know about this as well. So let's jump into that. There's a lot under the hood, right, of your body. There's a lot of stuff that you need to know what to do. And I tend to sometimes when I talk to patients or talk to family or friends about the reason why they need to go to the physician, a lot of that time it has to do just comparing or speaking the language, speaking a common language that you're able to understand. Everyone understands about taking care of their vehicle, right? You know that there's a lot going on under the hood. Your body is even more complicated than your vehicle, right? So if you're going to take your vehicle in to have the oil change, the tire rotating, and all that stuff, you need to do the same for your body. In order for you to maximize your doctor's visits, you have to prepare in advance. What does that look like? In order to prepare in advance, you need to write the questions down. What is it that's bothering you? Do you have a pain? Where is the pain? How long it's been going on? Write these down. Trust me, you will not remember them when you go in to see the doctor. A majority of you won't remember what it is that you wanted to go to the doctor for if you don't write it down. So you need to prepare in advance. 15 minutes, it's not a lot of time. So you want to make sure that your information or the things that you want to be addressed are addressed. And the best way to do that is to prepare for your appointment. The next thing you want to do is establish communication. If the new doctor you're seeing or a new PCP you're seeing, you want to make sure they're aware of some of the other issues that you are being treated for. I know I know doctors or their primary care should know everything, but you know as well sometimes that they're not available and you're seeing someone else. So you need to have an idea of what it is that you've been diagnosed with or for. So if you have a diagnosis of kidney issues and you're going in for pain, and your doctor is saying, "Oh, I'm going to give you ibuprofen or give you something Motrin," they may not be aware at that moment that you have kidney issues and you cannot take ibuprofen at that moment. So you have to be aware of your diagnosis as well. Just as how when a light goes off on your vehicle, you're like, "Oh, it's time to go in to have this check, or it's time to go in to have your tire rotated." You need to be aware of your diagnosis. The other thing is you need to be honest and open. And that's one of the big questions that I have. I'll address it another time is how do you communicate about certain topics with physicians who are of either a different culture or a different sex, and it's a more personal thing. We'll go into that in another time, but you have to be honest. If you want something to be taken care of, you have to let them know what the issue actually is. Then you want to prioritize and ask your questions, right? So if you have your knee that's been hurting you because the weather is changing, that may not take priority over the fact that you have this new chest that's been ongoing on and off for a while. So you have to prioritize. And if you don't know how to prioritize, just tell the doctor what your issue is and what's been going on, and then take it from there, right? So you have to prioritize and, well, 5 issues that I'm seeing my PCP for today. Which one bothers me the most? And what is it that I really want to be addressed today? So you have to learn to prioritize and ask your questions. Ask your questions. Then you have to know your plan. This is a big no-no. A lot of my family and friends, before you leave the doctor office, you have to know what's next. So if they're giving you to say a prescription or ordering a scan or whatever it is they're telling you they need to be done, your follow-up thing should be, "Okay, doctor, do I need to come back and see you? Or when can I get the results for this test?" Or you just need to know whatever it is that your doctor is ordering for you, you need to know what to do with the results or how to follow up with them, right? So don't leave without asking that question. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, "Oh, well, I did have a CAT scan done. I wonder what the results were," right? So you have to be able to communicate that and ask, "What do I do with the follow up results? When do I see you again?" For some of you in the medical field, this may seem common knowledge, but for a lot of the folks who are not in the medical field, this can be quite daunting and overwhelming to actually ask your PCP these type of questions. But you do need to know what's the next step. You're not going to just take your vehicle to, and leave, say, "Okay, back and pick up my vehicle," right? You're going to want to ask all these questions. So this here is just a building block as far as what you should do and how you should go through asking these questions and how you should speak with your doctor. All right, let's see next slide here. If you have any questions, be sure to just place it in the chat and I'll bring it on the screen and answer it as well. Know your family history. And again, this is just, I'm starting off here with just the basic of the things that you need to know, right? And biggest of all is your family history. Every family is different, and in every family, there are different diagnoses that you need to be aware of. So you need to find out, does anyone in my family has high blood pressure? Anyone in my family have diabetes? How about heart issues, kidney issues, cancer? By knowing these, when you go in to see your primary care, or if something has changed, you need to let them know. So, for instance, if for your father or your mother was diagnosed with breast cancer since you last saw your primary care, and you're in your 30s or 40s, then you need to say, hey, there's been a new diagnosis in my family. Someone in my family has now been diagnosed with cancer. Does that change what I need to do? Or if someone was diagnosed with high blood pressure, they may want to take closer look or pay more attention to some of these diagnoses. Okay? So know your family history. And for some communities, we used to say that, well, folks die of old age, or some things are just not shared. However, they're historians in your family, and so you need to go back and find out, okay, did this person really die of old age, or was it advanced cancer, or was it that they had diabetes and then had heart issues or lung issues, they were a smoker? All of this information makes a big difference. So you need to know your family history because it's in your genes. And you may be trying to lose weight or trying to manage your diabetes and trying to manage your blood pressure, only to find out no matter what you do, like no matter what you do, you lose weight down to a rail, you're eating like a cow out there grazing and nothing changed. That could be because it's genetic and there's nothing you can do to really change what's going on. And so you may have to go on medication. So these are just some of the basic things that you need to be aware of, right? Um, let's see here. So, what type of classic are you? I am here to try to tell you that, unfortunately or fortunately, depend on how you look at it, we're all going to become classics someday, right? So you need to maintain your body, you need to maintain who you are, maintain what you have, so that you don't end up like these old rusty classic. You want to be a classic that's kept up for as long as you possibly can. And sometimes you need some help along the way. And that's where the whole thing comes in regarding treatments and knowing your diagnosis, etc. I see one question there, and I will get to that in a little bit. And let's see here. So this is just a thank you for joining and going to Queen Quanta. I'm going to go back here to the main page so we can have a chat and answer some of your questions. So thanks for joining. If you have questions, just drop it in the chat and I'll bring it over. So the whole purpose of this, first, I did a few last year, Facebook and YouTube Live. And what I realized was that I got ahead of the curve. I was answering questions when the basic wasn't known by a lot of folks who were tuning in. So I wanted to take a step back and really just look at the basics and answer some basic questions before we start getting into the deep diagnosis. So here is a question that came up here from 20 Minutes in the Word. What are the signs of prostate cancer? So I will have a session for prostate cancer. I promise you that. But when you talk about the difference between the signs and symptoms, right, you have to know the signs are something that's been seen and symptoms are stuff that are being experienced by you. Typically, for prostate cancer, the two big things are one, knowing your PSA, that's your prostate specific antigen, and that's blood. They go to the labs and you need to know your number. Any male that's listening right now, when it comes to PSA, you need to know your number. And we'll go over what's the meaning of these number and when it's high versus low and what needs to be done. But in addition to knowing what the PSA number is, you also need to have what we call a digital rectal exam. And a lot of folks like, oh no, I don't want to have that exam. But approximately 20% of males are diagnosed with prostate cancer whose PSA are low or within a normal range. And in that exam, you can feel the prostate. And if there's a lump or bump on the prostate, that will prompt your physician to do additional tests such as biopsies, etc. So for prostate, stay tuned. We'll have a session dedicated just to prostate cancer. All right, let's see if there are any other questions. Are there any other questions for me at this time? I think I've gone over, well, I go until 40 minutes, so we have a few more minutes to go. If you do have any questions, please do just type them in the chat and I'll be able to answer them. Another question that had popped up had to do with screening for females who are under the age of 45, like what screenings are required. And again, there'll be something dedicated specifically to that for screening when it comes to not just cancer, but just overall. When you go into the primary care, your primary physician, your PCP or PCM, I keep going back to the PCP being physician, but means provider, your primary care provider. They will be able to screen you for not just cancer screening, but for overall health, your blood pressure, your diabetes. They'll let you know when it's a good time to start getting your mammogram. They'll look at if you're over a certain age or if you're sexually active, getting your pap smear, when is the right time to get your colonoscopies and all of that. So we will get into screening as well. I see no other questions here. So what's coming up? We'll be covering in this 30 to 40-minute session. Again, we'll be doing this every other Tuesday. Okay, we'll be doing this every other Tuesday. And let me see, I may have to try a different platform here because I've never really had this kind of issue with um, I've never really had this kind of issues with folks not being able to hear the sound. So stay tuned. I'll be trying a different platform next time. But we're coming to an end here for our first session on the basics in 2025. So join me in 2 weeks, Tuesday. I'm sure you're tired too, but I really wanted to take this time to do this community advocacy, if you will, and we'll just eat this elephant a little bit at a time, going over the topics that you've been sending me and asking. So I apologize to those who weren't able to hear the sound on Facebook. I'll try a new platform next time and find out what went wrong here. But we'll do this. This is just a free broadcast that we're trying to do ever so often. And again, by the grace of God, we'll push through this, and every 2 weeks, we'll be hitting these basic questions for about 30 to 40 minutes. So again, I want to thank you so very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. I extend my apologies for what happens. This is live, and so with live, anything can go wrong. So thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. God bless. Bye-bye now.